Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Just me this week. Chris is in California on in a teaching conference, so I had to figure out what was I going to do to try and keep you all entertained. And I figured the best way to get the show started was to bring the Sultan of Cinema, the Friar of Film, the Prince of the Picture, Adnan Virk, onto the show again to start it off. What's going on, my friend?
Great. That is incredible. Of all those, Sultan of Cinema is fantastic. I mean, Sultan of SWAT's good, but Sultan of Cinema is good. What was the other one? Prince of Film?
The Friar of Film and the Prince of the Picture.
My man, you've got alliteration A+ down with a bullet. It's great to be back with you. How are things going?
Things are good. Much better for me than a lot of the injury-prone guys so far going on in the league. As we go ahead and we'll put the ball in play to start the show. And, man, let's get off on, I think, what's going to be the heaviest hitting topic, at least of this week and probably so far of the season. Your colleague, Pedro Gomez, reported this week that the LA Angels have a pretty unfortunate, severe expectation that Shohei Ohtani is going to have Tommy John surgery, which is obviously going to keep him out of the lineup for probably the next year and a half or so as he recovers from that. It was a big bat, obviously an arm that has captivated really the entire scope of Major League Baseball. Man, where do they go from here?
Well, you're right. It's a lot to chew on, especially because Ohtani's been such a good story, and not just for Angels fans, but for baseball fans. We know how international the sport is, and Ohtani is being followed by that throng of Japanese media and a ton of Japanese baseball fans and Japanese Americans who want to see this kid succeed. And so far, he's been a good story. And as a baseball fan, I just like the idea of someone trying to do both things, trying to be both a hitter and a pitcher. And nobody since Babe Ruth in 1919 has had 300 at-bats in a season and made 25 starts. So I was just hoping to see Ohtani do something we haven't seen in a long time. Now, of course, with the injury, it changes everything. And, best case scenario, I know they said maybe give it like a month and he can still try to hit a little bit and hopefully some treatment with the PRP. But ultimately, I think it's going to feel like he's going to get the UCL done and get Tommy John surgery. Now, the good news is this. He's young enough. He's only 23. So if you get Tommy John, listen, kids get Tommy John now. It's crazy in high school. And they come back just as strong as ever. So the good news is that he'll come back, hopefully strong as ever. He'll be 25 years old. He's back in 2020. And he'll give us a good 10 years of his career. The bad news is that, of course, nothing is certain with injuries. You could have an injury and never be the same guy. And I think about Masahiro Tanaka. I remember when he first came aboard the Yankees, he was unbelievable out of the gate, Graham, and then he got hurt. And he probably needed Tommy John, but they said, well, let's just kind of mend the fence as long as we can. And he was good but not great, and then eventually started to suffer, and then eventually he was out for a while. And now he's back. He's got like a 4.5 ERA. He's not clearly been the same pitcher. So I worry about Ohtani and say, listen, when a guy has a major injury, sometimes they don't come back. Homer Bailey gets a $100 million contract from the Reds. Looks pretty good. And then all of a sudden he's terrible. He can never regain any of that form. So I'm with you that I really felt a deep sadness when I saw the news about Ohtani because I'm pulling for him and I'm pulling for baseball.
And it's funny, Tanaka was the first spot that I went. And a former colleague of yours, a guy who I've had a chance to talk to a few times, and Mark Mulder, he made this comment one time, and it always kind of stuck with me. And he said he talked to his doctor, and it might have been James Andrews. I'm not positive. But he said, hey, why am I not back to form? It's been the 15, 16 months. Why am I not back? And he said the doctor stopped and looked at him and said, Mark, somebody has to be the 20%. Yeah. And he said it hit him like a ton of bricks. And the scary, we're so used to, like you said, seeing guys come back, John Smoltz being the first pitcher to have Tommy John and make it into the Hall of Fame, and that's obviously going to explode here in the next decade or so. But there is that fear, even being young, what is it going to do to him? And the injury bug has been plaguing a ton of teams. We saw Mookie Betts go down, obviously Bumgarner, Kershaw, who Chris and I are concerned maybe having that two-word moniker attached to him now, which is injury prone, which you don't want to have. And it's scary to think that maybe the best years of his career are starting to fade. But then it comes out last night that Miguel Cabrera, now, albeit the Tigers sit in third place, they're 31-37, but he goes down with a biceps tendon tear, which just makes me cringe having to say it. Was there any possibility of Miggy maybe being a piece of trade bait for the Tigers come deadline, that now they're kind of stuck having to eat this because they can't move him due to the injury?
No, I think he was immovable because of the money. Miggy's owed $162 million after this year, and it's been a precipitous decline from that season where he won the Triple Crown, and some people thought he shouldn't have won the MVP over Trout, but obviously was the toast of the baseball world. And he had a 5-year span where he was just one of the fearsomest sluggers I've ever seen in my life. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the great right-hand hitters of all time, but he's really dropped off. I mean, last year you clearly saw the decline. And he said he was playing hurt. He was very frustrated and combative and antagonistic towards Detroit media and fans who said, look at the numbers have gone down. And he complained that I was hurt. You guys don't understand what I'm going through. And this year was okay, but again, clearly wasn't the same player. And then, as you mentioned, that just awful-sounding injury. You could tell right away after he swung. It's going to be bleak now because the Tigers can't move him because there's too much money, and now you wonder what kind of production you're going to get. And you knew when he signed that deal, like with sluggers like that for that much money, you go, the last 2 years are a wash. The problem is it looks like the last 4 or 5 years are a wash, which is a ton of money. You've seen that now with Pujols, you've seen it now with Miggy, and it's unfortunate, man, when kind of to Mulder's point, I remember that story, you're right, he told me that too, that like when the end comes, it comes in a hurry. And that's what we're seeing now with Miguel Cabrera, except he's owed way too much money. He's still going to play for a while. So it's just when the drop-off comes, it's unfortunate. And then, unfortunately, it's bad news for the Tigers. Like I said, they're a bad team. They're not going anywhere anyways. But they'd love to get rid of that deal. They'd have to eat like 80% of that money. It's too much.
Now, I know you have you got a game you're covering. I believe you said it was the Yankees and the Mets? Is that who you said you got going on? Or
Yankees and Nats we got coming up in about 20 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so Yankees. The Nats reactivate Murphy. To me, a huge thing for them, and we'll go over the standings here in just a few minutes, guys, once Adnan jumps off here to go ahead and get on the broadcast. But to me, I mean, the Nats are finally starting to piece it together, and this is where I think we find out who the Braves really are. Chris and I had the Braves in the top 10 in our power rankings for the month, a team who, I mean, you kept hearing it was about 2 years away, and it didn't seem like it was going to really happen. And then all of a sudden, Mike Foltynewicz becomes surprisingly kind of the face of that rotation above Julio Teheran, which I didn't think was going to happen. He is just kind of finding his way really comfortably in a real hitters-friendly ballpark in SunTrust Park there. But the Nats reactivate Murphy. They bring back Adam Eaton from the DL, and they are starting to charge up the standings. They now sit a game and a half back of the Braves. The Braves 1 win shy of 40. Is it still the Nationals' division to lose, or is Atlanta really going to be a legitimate threat to knock them off of that number 1 spot, which we thought was going to be a runaway? We thought the East was going to be the weakest division of the entire group.
I do think the Braves have staying power. We had them on our air last night. Unfortunately, ESPN has not shown them much, but I hope you saw a bit of the game last night. Hank Aaron Appreciation Night.
That was absolutely awesome. I mean, right? to see Eduardo Perez's, I mean, he's like a kid in a candy store just staring. I mean, just listening to story time. It was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that at his age, Hank is still so lucid and so funny and entertaining and genial, and it's amazing to think he's one of the game's all-time best players. He's still underrated. I don't know how that happens, but 25 All-Stars. I mean, it's just nuts. But as far as the Braves themselves, it was great to see Ozzie Albies last night. He hit a home run. He's been slumping the last 15 games or so, but of course, he's been a tremendous story this year, Rookie of the Year for the Braves. Freddie Freeman's leading in on-base and slugging. So to me, he's an MVP candidate. And Nick Markakis has been great. He's leading the National League in hits. Now, Ronald Acuna had a good start, but then, of course, he got hurt. So hopefully he can bounce back and be the guy he was. Soroka's a good story, of course. I love him because he's from Calgary, so a fellow Canadian. So I think the Braves are pretty good. Now, the difference is they're not going to go out and spend. Alex Anthopoulos is not going to make a move to go and get a guy. He's not going to sacrifice the future for the present. They're going to continue with what they have and kind of go that direction. Whereas the Nationals, this is their last kick of the can. Bryce Harper's not going to re-sign. He's going to go get 10 years, $300 million from somebody, whether it's Philadelphia, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, Angels, the usual teams you throw out there. So the Nationals know this is their last window. So if they need an arm, if they need a starter, a bullpen guy, a bench guy, they'll go do it, whereas the Braves will not get that reinforcement. That's why I think the Nationals have a little bit more of the edge. You mentioned those players finally coming back who are healthy. Scherzer's going to win another Cy Young. He's unbelievable. So, yeah, I do think the Nationals win that division, but I don't think the Braves go away. I think the Phillies could make some noise for the second walker. They're not going to win the division, but they're a better team than expected as well. They were expected to be good next year, but they're kind of ahead of schedule. But then, of course, the Mets and the Marlins are not very good at all. So, yeah, I think it's Nationals, but watch out for the Braves. They're going to hang around for a while.
And I've been happy to see Gabe Kapler kind of get over the hiccups. The last thing I'll ask you before you go, because you mentioned his name And we've heard Chipper Jones talk about him so much in the years prior to his retirement and after his retirement. Is Freddie Freeman one of the most underrated players in the game because the Braves have been so bad for so long? Is he one of those underrated first basemen in the game today still?
100%. I think I used to always say Paul Goldschmidt was the most underrated, but then I think everyone kind of caught up to the fact how good this guy is. And the fact he's always in the MVP race. And then this year, unfortunately, Goldie's had a bad season. He was really slumping for a while, though the last 2 weeks he's been on an unbelievable tear. But yeah, Freeman's the guy for me, man. Nobody ever mentions how good he is. He's a perennial. He's leading all. Thankfully now he's getting some pub. He's leading all National League vote getters at first base. So all the Braves at least are stuff in the ballot box. To me right now he's the MVP. He's an incredible hitter. He's good defensively. He's been good for a while. But no one really talks about him. So one executive saying Bryce Harper's overrated and a loser. Well, I got one guy who's a great player. That's Freddie Freeman. So I'd love to see him get some more pub. He's an awesome player, and I agree with you. He's always been underrated.
Adnan, as always, I appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the broadcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Graham, I appreciate it, buddy. Hopefully I get another trip to South Florida. We can hang out with the Levitard Show people. But until then, we'll see you soon, buddy.
I will see you soon. Bye. And that was Adnan Virk hanging out with us on the show. And he's right, guys. I mean, is it really that hard to believe that Freddie Freeman is one of the most underrated first basemen in the game? He's a guy who we have talked about, at least I know, I've seen him play for a while when I went ahead and was still watching the Braves. He's come along a very long way, and he has quietly led that team and in a lot of areas of the National League, at least in top 5, in a lot of those big offensive numbers. We see the way that he is a team-friendly guy, made the attempt to play at third base last year after coming back from the injury because Matt Adams was just playing that good. And then, of course, they move him back to first base because Adams chooses not to hang around with the team. In other news, as we head up the East Coast, the Baltimore Orioles have activated closer Zach Britton. This has been a long time coming. They have needed him back for a while. Of course, he had the injury, I believe, right around the end of the offseason, beginning of this year. But he will finally go ahead after having an Achilles tear in the offseason. He comes back, owed $12 million this year. The Orioles need him to produce and to play well and to pitch well closing. Why? They need to trade him. He's not going to re-sign. They're not going to want to re-sign him for the money that he is owed. Maybe the injury cuts a little bit of cash off of that number, but there is no way that a team that is this abysmal still in Major League Baseball has the opportunity to re-sign the likes of Zach Britton or Manny Machado. Adnan mentioned it. There's no way that Bryce Harper is going to stay. There's no way that Machado stays in there as well. Without Chris being here, I don't want to get too deep into the bottom half of our power rankings. We will go over it just a little bit, just so you guys can go ahead and at least kind of see what we've been doing. But let's go ahead and start up at least early, as we normally do. Take you around the standings, see what's happening in Major League Baseball. I will get the honor of taking you through both leagues. Chris not going to be here to take you through the National League. Of course, we are part of the Grueling Truth Network, at Grueling Truth on Twitter, thegruelingtruth.net, where legends speak. Always be sure to find us at OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. The Yankees on top of the American League East by percentage points. They still have yet to play the same number of games as they have, I believe, have had 6 rainouts. They have 3 doubleheaders coming up in the next month and a half or so, an astronomical number, which has led to some drama that we mentioned. Of course, ESPN moving the game. If you haven't heard this story, it's really kind of wild. ESPN moved the Yankees game with the Blue Jays. I believe it's in July, right around maybe the 8th or 9th, something around there. Could be the week after, might be the 16th. Forgive me, I don't know the date off the top of the head right now. But ESPN said they wanted the Yankees-Blue Jays game to be their primary game for that Sunday. Okay, sure, no problem. Move it around. They play at 8. Cool. Not cool because turns out the Yankees have a doubleheader the next day in Baltimore. So you're looking at maybe getting finished with a game around 11. You're not going to get out of Toronto before probably 12:30, 1 a.m. Got to fly to Baltimore. Got to get through customs. Probably not going to be in your hotel until 5 or 6 a.m. Then you got to play 2 games. The Yankees know that is a good possibility of being 2 losses. And there's no place for that. They can't afford to have 2 losses like that. Yes, it is against the Orioles, but when you come in that tired, that lethargic, it really puts you behind the 8 ball. Something they don't need, especially in a divisional race with a team like the Red Sox at 46 and 22. They sit tied. Again, percentage points, all that's separating right now due to the lack of games played. The Rays have dropped 3 games below 500, but still, for a team that had such little expectations that we had from this year, still really impressed. They're 13.5 games back. They won't have anything. We're seeing the moves begin to get made. I think there's a good possibility that finally Chris Archer gets dealt. Once you saw Longoria go to San Francisco in the offseason, to me, that was the writing on the wall, that there was going to be no question that Chris Archer would get moved. Longoria was the face of that franchise, of that city. And when you're going to go ahead and move him, give him a chance to be competitive and try and start cutting your payroll, there's no reason to keep Chris Archer there. They won't want to re-sign him. He won't be able to get the money that he wants. Odorizzi has already moved. I would expect that Archer would easily be next. Moving on down the line, as we say, unfortunately, pretty much every year, the Blue Jays, or every week rather, the Blue Jays and the Orioles still playing. Jays not looking awful. They're 2 games back of the Rays, 30 and 38. But the Orioles, they are at 19 wins, 19 and 47. They are the worst team in Major League Baseball, the only team in Major League Baseball who has yet to crack the 20 win mark. Just absolutely abysmal. They still sit comfortably at the bottom of my bottom 3. It has just been a travesty this year. They are 2-8 in their last 10. I don't know if Buck Showalter will keep his job at the end of the year. To be honest, I don't know if he wants to keep the damn job at the end of the year. Would you? I sure as hell wouldn't. You're going to lose your star player. You have no pitching. They paid Mark Trumbo not a huge lump sum of money, but a pretty good-sized chunk of cash a couple of years ago. That hasn't panned out. He has not had the same type of offensive production that he had back in, I believe it was 2016. Moving down to the American League Central, Indians place and the Tigers, as we mentioned, sitting in 3rd, the White Sox, and then the Royals. Royals not awful, but 22 wins, still not great. Hard thing here still, the Rangers on the bottom of the AL West. Here is what's going to get me excited. The Seattle Mariners sitting on top of the American League West, a half game up on the Astros. They are 8-2 in their last 10. Really no question here that the Mariners are going to sit on top of my top 5 this week at 8-2. Surprisingly enough, though, as we get down into the National League here in just a moment, you might be surprised to see who number 2 is. The Angels, 6-4. Unfortunately, we are probably going to see their power ranking numbers drop over the next several months just because of the Ohtani injury. It's a big hit to them. Oakland A's, they're in 4th place, but they're a game over 500. They are impressive. They are a team that is not going away. I still stand by that. I'm excited about that. And the Rangers sit on the bottom. Moving over to the National League, the Braves on top of the Nationals by a game and a half, as we mentioned, with our buddy Adnan Virk. Thank you again for joining us, my friend. The Phillies, 3.5 games back, sit in the middle. The Mets and the Marlins just kind of crumbling, floundering, however you want to say it. If you didn't get a chance to see this, guys, a little off topic, but the New York Mets, a couple of years ago, when Chris and I began the show, the Mets, pitcher Noah Syndergaard was ejected for throwing behind Chase Utley. Plate umpire Adam Hamrate tossed him really with no warnings, just a quick toss, and it became a big thing. It was on Fox, Joe Buck saying that you can't do that. I think Smoltz was there with him. Well, a video just came out of crew chief Tom Hallion was mic'd up. So he's there talking to Syndergaard, explaining what's going on. All of a sudden you see him run over, and he's with Terry Collins. It is full of swearing, yelling, but it is really neat to see, as someone obviously who umpires, who takes a lot of enjoyment out of that, to see that side of what's happened, to actually hear what's being said. It is a great chance to go really behind the mask and see what's happening there. Moving into the Central, the Brewers, a game and a half up on the Cubs. The Cubs are still making good in the wild card. They are a game and a half back of the wild card. But, man, the Brewers are a really good team. Eric Thames has been reactivated off the DL. It's a big thing for them. The Cardinals, though, sitting 2 games behind the Cubbies, they just had Yadier Molina, come back in. That's a big deal for them. It's a shot in the arm. Well, you'll see what happens. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they are 2-8 in their last 10, really looking poor. They are going to probably be in the bottom 3 this week just because of how poor they've been playing. They've dropped 3 games below 500. The Reds, sitting on the bottom, still going to be one of the worst team in the National League. Here's the crazy part. We talked last week about the Colorado Rockies sitting not comfortably, but sitting on top of the American League or the National League West. Yet that's not how this is going anymore, guys. The Diamondbacks now sit 3 games clear of the Dodgers? Yes, the Diamondbacks on top of the West. The Dodgers at 34 and 32. They are 8-2 in their last 10. They sit second in the National League West. The Giants at 6-4 in their last 10, 33 and 34. Bumgarner back. Hopefully that will help them. They need still more help in that rotation to try and get those guys healthy. Here's the crazy one. The Rockies have fallen 2-8 in their last 10 to 32 and 34. They are percentage points above the San Diego Padres for the worst team in the National League West. Absolutely just a precipitous fall. The bottom 3 for me this week, the Mets, who are 1-9, the Rockies, who are 2-8, and it is really hard for me just in the way that they look to not go ahead. I said keep the Orioles down there. If you want to give an honorable mention, you can give an honorable mention to the Royals and also the New York Mets. The Mets are 1-9 in their last 10. They are a team that is just crumbling at the seams. Mickey Callaway got his first ejection the other night for a batter by Stu Sherwater being put back in the box for not attempting to get out of the way after he was hit by a pitch in his elbow guard. My top 5. Hard to not keep the Yankees up there, guys. 8-2 in their last 10. They sit on top of the top 5. The Mariners making an absolute fantastic run. Came out this week, and this is an interesting part. Robinson Cano will not return to the full-time starting second base position when he gets back, something that Chris and I will get much more in-depth on when he gets back. But it looks like that D. Gordon, who was acquired from the Marlins this offseason and was attempting to play center field for the Mariners, he will be taking over as the starting second baseman during Cano's suspension, and it appears that the ball club is happy to go ahead and keep him there. They like the defense. They like the speed. Does this spell the end for Cano? Probably not, due to the amount of money he is still going to be owed, but his stock is rapidly falling, and, of course, the suspension does not help any of that. So you have the Yankees, the Mariners. Flip it around, got to go down to the West in the National League. The Diamondbacks and the Dodgers, both 8-2 in their last 10. Really, really impressive. They're keeping it up, and they have surged into the top 2 spots in that division. Finally, it's the Red Sox. They are 7-3, but they are a really, really impressive 7-3. So that is my top 5. The Yankees, the Mariners, the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, and the Red Sox. So as I mentioned, we will get into this again because I know Chris is going to want to talk about it, but I want to go ahead and give you guys briefly who we have as our latter half of our power rankings. Again, this was done beginning of the month before anything else happened, so bear with us, understanding that this is just kind of where things sit. Number 15 is the Arizona Diamondbacks. I told you all that one last week, but yes, we have them at 15 and we'll go ahead and recap real quick 1 through 15. The Red Sox, the Astros, the Yankees, the Brewers at 4, the Braves at 5, the Indians at 6, Nationals at 7, the Mariners 8, the Angels 9, the Rockies 10, the Phillies at 11, the A's 12, the Cardinals 13, the Pirates 14, the Diamondbacks 15. Again, these are going to change, obviously, due to injury and performance. So far, the Rockies likely to fall if they don't get things back on track before July. The 16th team in our power rankings, the Chicago Cubs, a team that has the talent to do very, very well. They should be doing fantastic. Their pitching has been suspect isn't even a fair term. It has been absolutely subpar. It is not impressive. We thought bringing in Yu Darvish might be decent. Darvish is horrific. Jose Quintana not looking that good. Tyler Chatwood struggling. John Lester still the key, the ace of that team, but he needs help behind him. The Tigers sit at 17. This was before Miggy. The Cabrera injury really going to drop their stock. Not their fault, but you're going to lose a lot of power, a lot of pop, a lot of offensive production from the future Hall of Famer due to the biceps injury. He is going to be gone for the year, as we mentioned earlier in the show. The Tampa Bay Rays sitting at 18, a team that, as we have mentioned really every week, maybe ad nauseum to a lot of you guys who don't follow them that much, the Rays, a team that were thought to pretty much be like the Marlins of the American League. They were giving everything away. They were selling off pieces, trying to get assets. They weren't expected to do anything worth a hoot, and they are sitting right around 500. Floating around 500, I will take that as a Rays fan. If I'm sitting here looking at my team, giving away all these pieces, giving away Longoria, getting rid of they got him Denard's fan, they got rid of him, got rid of a bunch of relievers, you got rid of Odorizzi. Of course, like we said, Archer probably going to go. You didn't re-sign Logan Morrison, you didn't re-sign Corey Dickerson. The Lomo, not bringing him back is looking really, really good as he struggles in Minnesota. The Dodgers at 19. Hey, when we went ahead and made the list, the Dodgers were 4th place in the National League West. They didn't have things right. The Kershaw injury still has us concerned. That is not going to change. They might bump up a little bit because some teams may fall, but until we really begin to see at least some sort of hold on that division where it's not just, playing leapfrog every other week to see who's going to be on top, they're going to be a little bit lower. Hard for Chris to say, but the Giants sit 20th. Yep, the Giants behind the Dodgers. I'm not going to lie, he had the most disgusted look on his face when we had to make that decision, but make the decision we did, and it feels like the right one. They are a team that is in flux, a team that is still very, very old. Chris has a kind of a hot take on one of the draftees that the Giants made and the future that it could mean for Buster Posey. We'll get into that coming up here on the show in the next several weeks as we start looking at what the draft was for the teams, who they actually signed, who chose to go to college or other options. Minnesota Twins, 21, a team that we thought were really going to, they were going to be contenders. They had stopped being pretenders. They looked good last year. I mentioned this the other week. The Twins are who we thought they were. Last year, they were not who we thought they were. Even with the acquisition of guys like Jake Odorizzi, Logan Morrison, it just has not worked out. Paul Molitor better be happy right now that he got that extension, because if this was the contract year, he likely would be out of a job. The Blue Jays at 22, they're a team that, they're sort of kind of hanging, but they're behind the Rays with players like you still have J-Happ, you have Stroman, you have Tulowitzki, you have Donaldson. They're a team that should be a lot better than they are and are just floundering. Really hard to give the Blue Jays anything higher than 22. The Mets, 23. They're 1-9 in their last 10. They are just falling to pieces. Everything that they had before the season, this year began, we thought there was a possibility of some good things happening. They released Adrian Gonzalez from his contract on Monday morning, or I guess Sunday night after the game. There's talk, I don't think it's real, guys, but the possibility of Syndergaard and DeGrom being traded possibly to the Yankees. I get it's great having a house in New York and you don't want to have to leave it, but if Sandy Alderson makes a deal with Brian Cashman and move one or those two guys over to New York or to the Yankees in the Bronx, get ready for Queens to be in a massive upheaval. Don't see that happen. The Padres sit 24th. They made a big splash they wanted to in signing Eric Hosmer. Whoop-de-doo. It's Hosmer. He's one man. He can't do everything. He's going to bat maybe 4 times a game. They wanted to make a splash. We've seen this happen before or be attempted before. It has not worked out well for the Padres. The Rangers at 25, they are a team that should have been, we thought were going to try and find their way back into being a contender in that National League West, and everything they try and do is just not there. I certainly expect Cole Hamels to be moved. I think Adrian Beltre should be moved. I would like to see him have a chance to get to a contender team as he is in the twilight of his career. The Marlins at 26, yeah, guys, they're going to be low, but hey, they're a team who still playing pretty well when you look at how many things they gave up. Obviously, Jose Fernandez and his tragedy in his passing. D. Gordon, as you mentioned, to the Mariners. You trade Christian Yelich to the Brewers. Marcell Ozuna goes to the Cardinals. Hechavarria last year went to the Rays. And there is talk that the Nationals are inquiring about catcher JT Realmuto. I would think Martin Prado will move as well. Prado, a veteran third baseman, one that teams could use. So that might be a good spot for him, a chance for him to get moved. The Royals at 27, the Reds at 28, the White Sox 29, the Orioles at 30. I don't need to say much about that. They're all abysmal teams, and it was just one of those, okay, who's going to go where? It didn't really matter. So that's how we go through our power rankings for June. We will touch on them again when Chris gets back from his school conference, but he is enjoying that in California, back where he is from on the West Coast. And guys, that's really it for me this week. Not a whole lot to get into. A lot of big things happen. Of course, the Miggy injury we mentioned. We talked about, obviously, the Ohtani injury. It is not official yet. He will try for the platelet-rich plasma injections. It's not good. And Adnan, you heard it from him. This looks like it's going to end up being forced upon Ohtani. There really is no way, I don't think, around it. The longer you let him play, and you watch the way that he swings, his elbow is very locked out when he swings. And when you're putting that much torque and that much power on your elbow through that swing, the idea when he's not pitching is to hopefully give that some rest. It's not happening that way. Unfortunately, Ohtani will be likely out. The longer they push off letting him get the surgery, the longer he will be out down the road. You get it done now while he's young. His body heals hopefully faster, better because of age, taking care of himself, and it gives him a chance to get back quicker, get back healthy, and once again be a productive member of that ball club. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you to Adnan Virk again for hanging out. Always awesome when he comes on. We can't tell you enough how much we appreciate always his friendship to the show and having him hang out with us. Hope you guys enjoy hearing it. Be sure to let us know what you think of the power rankings. Don't worry, we'll touch on them again next week. I know Chris is going to have some things to say, and we'll have plenty more of good baseball news coming out as the All-Star break is just about a month away, the unofficial midway point into the season. Most teams sitting about 68 games, so we are really, when we get to about the beginning of July, will be the roughly official 81 game mark for most teams, and we will start looking at, as we've been kind of teasing you guys for a while, what's going to be our kind of mid-season award, Cy Young, MVP, Rookie of the Year, and Manager of the Year. I've given you a few names to think about in Manager of the Year. Hey, if you have some, let us know. Social media is out there. We'd love to hear from you guys. We do this show really for you. It's a chance for us to talk. We love talking baseball, and we love that you guys are out there just hanging out with us and listening to it. Of course, you can tweet us at OO Left Field, and, of course, send us a message on Facebook, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. Be sure to check out thegruelingtruth.net. Football just around the corner. The NBA draft coming up here in about a week, I believe a week from tomorrow. So if you are a big basketball fan as well, hey, figure out who Mike Goodpaster and the gang think is your team is going to be taking and what that will mean for the future of your basketball franchise. For everybody here at the Grueling Truth Network, and for Chris, sorry he couldn't be here, I'm Graham. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'll catch you next week with Chris back here on Out of Left Field.